Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Vox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Skullrood. Joined with me, as always, my brother,
Ryan Skullrood. That's me. Welcome, you guys.
Once again, show is brought to you by VoxDFS.com. I am super excited to be back on the show after taking a week off to spend some time in Montana, but I am excited to be back. We've got some news and injuries to cover. We have a review through 4 weeks. It is exciting / disheartening to know that we're already a quarter of the way done to the fantasy football season. Cue the wah-wah. But we'll do a review through week 4, focusing on who we believe are breakouts. Some of them may be some obvious ones. Also, we're going to be covering some busts with people who are not getting off to a good start and people we think are going to be full-on busts by the end of the season. Then we're going to talk about some pickups that we think you should get for week 5. A lot to cover in this episode. So let's get straight into the news.
Real quick.
Can
I just say, I am so happy you're back. I'm sure everyone got sick of me doing solo shows this last week.
Nothing but your face.
Since we had a couple of guests that had to cancel last minute just because of illness and various just life circumstances, which we completely understand. But I'm very happy to not be doing a solo show. You provide a little bit of energy that I just don't always have because I have 2 kids. So,
yeah.
So I'm very happy you're back. So yeah, all right, let's get going.
First thing, we're just going to touch up on some injuries. Rashad Jennings was inactive for Monday night's game. A lot of people believe that he will be back next week, which does not bode well for those of you who have Darkwa, who had a really great game tonight. We are recording on Monday night, but tonight against the Vikings had some pretty good yardage numbers and did pretty well. But I fully expect Rashad Jennings to be back. A little bit of a damper. Josh Gordon is basically fully suspended. His suspension was reinstated. Sorry to those of you who picked him up in your draft late, hoping and banking that he wouldn't make another mistake. This guy right here. But good news is it appears that he's focusing on trying to get his life back on track. But
yeah, I mean, the reason that he's gone. I mean, he made the choice himself to go into rehab due to his inability to stay away from alcohol. So, I mean,
marijuana.
Well, no. This one was actually because of his alcohol issues is why he admitted himself into rehab. So, fantasy football stuff aside, let's hope that this guy can actually, whether he plays football again or not, let's just hope that this guy can get his life right, get it turned around, and be able to. Well, I don't necessarily want to, go so harsh to say be a productive, member of society, but let's hope that this guy can, start making some good lifestyle choices and get his life back on track and start living life instead of just causing himself so many issues.
Moving on, for those of you who have Eric Decker, a lot of people are believing that he will be back. I believe it's unlikely that he'll be back for week 5. Against the Steelers. So those of you who have Enunwa, hopefully, and we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about some breakouts and busts, hopefully his quarterback starts throwing to the right team. But Harbaugh is not –
interceptions in 3 weeks. 9 interceptions in 2 weeks.
I wonder what the record is for 3 weeks.
I don't know.
Forsett I think most people should drop him at this point because of a non-injury benching.
He may cut.
But Cardinals, moving on to the Cardinals, Bruce Arians is optimistic that Carson Palmer will play next week. He took a hit and was under concussion protocol. He has the Thursday night game, so I would monitor that situation up until about an hour or two before game time to figure out whether or not he's going to be playing. I am going to give you a quarterback you should pick up this week if you need to stream one, in case you have someone like Carson Palmer or Cam Newton. Cam Newton also is still under the concussion protocols. No indication on where he's at this moment. Once again, we're filming this on a Monday night. Another injury I want to kind of talk about is to Jay Cutler. This is more about Brian Hoyer being successful and its effect on people like Eddie Royal, White, who does have a slight injury as well, but also Alshon Jeffrey's numbers have gone down since Jay Cutler has left. And so
Zach Miller's have skyrocketed.
Yeah, and so Zach Miller, and let's not forget that that Brian Hoyer was a serviceable quarterback last year with Houston. Now, granted, it was the merry-go-round in the Houston quarterback backfield, but he was serviceable when he started. Also, there's an indication for those of you in much deeper leagues who had Trevor Siemian starting. There's news came out today that he will still have the starting job when he comes back if he's out longer than week 5. If he comes back healthy, he's still going to be the starter. No need to worry about Paxton Lynch. Last bit of injury news I want to cover is Tevin Coleman and the sickle cell trait thing going on. He is going to be in Denver against a solid defense, but the Falcons have been monstrous, for lack of a better term, fantasy production-wise, when you're looking at people like Matt Ryan, Tevin Coleman. Tammy's been productive at times. Devonta Freeman, Julio Jones have all been big. And so I would still play Coleman in PPR flex roles. But that's kind of the last. The other one, Ryan Matthews is expected to play next Sunday. I don't know what that really means, considering Wendell Smallwood's production last week, and Ryan Matthews, once again, like we said in one of the first episodes, being made of quote-unquote glass and always being injured. But any other bits of news that you want to bring up, Ryan?
No, I mean those are the major things. I mean, you look at a couple more defensive injuries, guys out for the season. I believe it was Sean Merriweather, linebacker for Atlanta, now out for the season with a torn Achilles. You've got Navarro Bowman, who's out for the season with a torn Achilles for San Francisco.
Could be career.
Oh yeah, considering
and his knee.
Looking at his age, he had the leg problem from, was it the end of 2013 from the NFC Championship game that he got his leg all busted up against the Seahawks, where he missed half the next season after that too. So this could be it for Navarro Bowman, but knowing him and his drive, he very well could be back next year.
Do you have one more? Because I got one more. I completely forgot about Zach Ertz. The displaced rib that he has, he's been cleared by doctors. It has been reported to be quote-unquote 100%. This really helps the Philadelphia offense. Not that they're really struggling per se because they're 3-0, but this is a great addition for Carson Wentz.
It's another good target for him, yeah.
Another good target for him. We talked at the beginning of the year that Philadelphia Eagles had no receivers, and Carson Wentz is apparently proving us wrong because he's throwing for 250, 300 yards a game. Not necessarily getting the scores, but with Zach Ertz coming back, this adds just another weapon to really make Carson Wentz even more viable.
Correct.
Do we want to get into our review through week 3? Or through week 4, sorry.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go through our first sponsor since we missed that earlier. We'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do that now.
Go for it.
First quote unquote sponsor / affiliate that we have associated with, SkullKingFootball.com has officially declared Yahoo Daily Fantasy as our DFS platform of choice. They are the industry leader in fair play. One of the things that Yahoo does that say the other big, we'll just say the other big companies don't, is in a lot of those other big programs and platforms, you'll have pros entering hundreds and thousands of lineups in like the $1 million contests and that sort of thing. At Yahoo, most of their contests you can only enter a max of 10. If they have a 10, they have a competition or a contest that's got, say that 13,000 entries, you can still only enter 10 entries. So it gives a lot more chance for more guys to get involved, better chance for the guys like you and me who don't have their entire days and weeks to spend creating their lineups for these contests, spreading them all out. So I know the guys at Vox, there's a few of the guys at Vox DFS are absolutely cleaning up on Yahoo simply because there's not as many pros. They're able to really spread out their contests and play them well. So if you want to know more about Yahoo Daily, you can go to skullkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily. That's all one word. And right now we're actually offering a deal. If you sign up for a Yahoo, if you're brand new to Yahoo Daily Fantasy, you sign up for a Yahoo Daily Fantasy new account through the affiliate links on that webpage, skullkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily. You go through there, sign up for a new Yahoo account, and enter a paid contest. We will give you a free season-long premium membership to skullkingfootball.com. So if you get on there and you enter, you create a new account, enter a new contest, we will give you a free Skull King Football premium membership. So yeah, make sure to get on there. Again, skullkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily to find out more about how you can get involved on there and start playing some daily fantasy.
Okay, on to our way too early busts, maybe only through week 4. But these are not due to injury. For those of you who have paid attention all season long to our kind of breakouts and busts episode, I'm doing good and bad. Roethlisberger is tearing it up, which I did not foresee. He's also not injured. Rawls still injured. Knew that was going to happen. Dez Bryant still with an ailing injury. But the ones that we're going to cover now have nothing to do with injury. This is about their play. Maybe they have some sort of ailment, but it hasn't kept them off the field. And so getting into this, I'm going to start with running back who's looking like a bust is Latavius Murray. This, I think, has more to do with Oakland not running the ball. Yes, DeAndre Washington is getting quote-unquote more touches, but that's an 8-5. In the last game, Oakland only ran the ball 15 times. Latavius Murray had it 8 times. DeAndre Washington had it 5 times, and Richard had it for 3 times. I don't understand how Oakland can expect anybody to get any sort of rhythm going if they can't hold the ball for longer than 8 touches. In addition, he's got 4.6 yards per carry so far this season. I just don't see the Raiders using or running enough, one or two, using Latavius Murray enough to warrant any sort of running back 1 or running back 2 option. I'm looking at trading him as fast as possible to get him off my hands, and I've got him in 3 or 4 leagues. And so, Ryan, who do you have as a running back bust so far into this season?
Well, in terms of running back bust, really, I think the top option here would be Todd Gurley. Everyone was expecting him to be, a lot of people picked him as the number 1 running back in standard leagues, in the top 3 or 4 in PPR leagues. And at this point, he is running after 4 weeks at running back number 27 in PPR leagues. The only reason we're not giving standard is simply because our main game of choice is full point PPR. So, so looking at it so far, he is averaging at running back number 27 in PPR at 11.85 points per game, 54 rush yards. He's averaging 54 rush yards and 2 receptions for 14.5 yards a game. He has 2 TDs on the season. Both of those were in the same game against Tampa Bay. He has 3 games out of 4 without a touchdown. So I think, for me, I think this will get better for him once they start to get in a little bit of a rhythm. Somehow, some way, the Rams are 3-1, and really I think that has a lot more to do with their defense than it does their offense. I think their offense will get going a little bit better in terms of the run. Really, what it is, I think the main issue is that teams are stacking the box against Gurley, and so they're forcing. Who's their quarterback? Is Case Keenum their quarterback?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
I think Case Keenum.
It doesn't matter
Whether it's going to be Case Keenum or Jared Goff, it doesn't really matter. Teams are going to force them to throw the ball on them. So I think Gurley will get it done. I think they may try to work if the offense can start to throw the ball a little bit better, which they've taken out the Seahawks at home, but the Seahawks only scored 3 points in that game. So, and then they managed to take out Arizona at Arizona. I think that was 17-14 or something like that. So, I think that Todd Gurley will do better. I don't see him. He probably maybe top 15, maybe get up to the top 10 running back. He could break out. I'm not seeing a whole lot from the Rams offense for the most part to convince me that he is going to return to top 3 or 4. So,
one thing I did look it up because Todd Gurley was a very, very high draft pick. Right now, he is the 23rd running back according to Yahoo in standard leagues. That is behind people like Frank Gore and Latavius Murray and Matt Jones. And so all people that we weren't really high on are doing better right now than Todd Gurley. One thing to also remember is Todd Gurley is in the NFC West playing tough defenses 6 of the 16 games in the regular season, and that's not including any other teams. He does have Carolina to play. He does have Buffalo to play this next week, but he is going to face easier defenses like New Orleans, like New York Giants. So it could get better, but overall, I think this is kind of the norm. But moving on to wide receiver, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. Ryan, tell me who you have as wide receiver is your bust right now, and then I'll go into mine.
Well, my bust on wide receiver is actually on a team that I've thought pretty highly of. Not necessarily because I think they're good, but because of how bad they are, especially how bad their defense is. Their offense will put up fantasy numbers, which is why I put Matthew Stafford I think Matthew Stafford can still finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. So because of that, my big bust is Golden Tate right now through 4 games. Through 4 games in full point PPR, which is what Golden Tate was an absolute beast in. As of this point, he is in full point PPR. He is wide receiver number 91, averaging 6.23 points per game, only 3.5 catches for 24 yards a game. I knew it was bad news for Golden Tate when the Lions signed Anquan Boldin. It was one thing when Marvin Jones came in, because when Marvin Jones came in, he's more of a deep threat guy. He's going to get those long catches, those long passes. However, when Anquan Boldin came in, Anquan Boldin used to be a bit of a stretch the field guy. Not anymore. Because of his age, he's 33, 34? He's 32, he's above 30. He's over 30. At this point in his career, because of his size and because of he's older, doesn't have the speed he used to, he now is a possession receiver. He is a prototypical end of career possession guy, which those are the kind of guys they put in the slot. He's going to get a lot of those short passes those possession passes, those short receptions for just eating up yardage to get the short first downs that they need. That was Golden Tate. Golden Tate used to do that and then be able to stretch the field beyond that and get the yards after the catch. With Anquan Bolden in here now, what's Golden? They're going to have to find a new role for Golden Tate. He has fallen a long way from being the 1A and 1B of Marvin Jones and Golden Tate, and now it's basically the Marvin Jones show in Detroit. So for me, it's Golden Tate. I think Jim Caldwell came out this last week and said that that Golden Tate is still a very integral part of their offense. He said that after benching him in the second half, for most of the second half in this last game against Detroit, still says that he's an integral part of the offense. We'll see. So for me, so far it's Golden Tate. I wouldn't necessarily drop him right now, but I would wait a couple weeks to see if he can make any returns. You're not going to get anyone to trade for him. If you can, you are a fantasy god. So, right now Golden Tate's my major bust at wide receiver.
For me, this may come as a shock to a lot of people. My bust, even after watching the Monday Night Football game tonight, right now, has got to be Odell Beckham Jr. simply for the fact of where he was drafted. Yes, other top receivers like Brown, Jones, and Green have had bad games. But to me, Odell Beckham Jr. still hasn't scored, for one, and is not getting any sort of consistency. And it's not like he's playing great defenses right now. He played Dallas. He played New Orleans. He played Washington. He played Minnesota. Minnesota tonight is a great defense, number one in fantasy football. But right now, I watched a route that he ran tonight that he didn't even go. There was miscommunication. Like, he quit on the route. He came up off after his first catch and really got in the face of the defender, cost his team 15 yards. I think the antics of Odell Beckham Jr. are beginning to get in the way of his production, as well as there's some sort of miscommunication between Odell Beckham Jr. and Eli Manning. I'm not saying to drop Odell Beckham Jr. for anything, but I think if you could package and get something, maybe you trade him. But he is going to be facing some tougher defenses. Now, he may have a huge game against Green Bay because all the top receivers are having monstrous games against Green Bay. I mean, just look at Marvin Jones. But then he's going to face Baltimore and L.A., who are good defenses. He's going to have his bye, and then he's going to come back and play Philadelphia, who's a sneaky good defense. So right now, Odell Beckham Jr.'s production I really don't like, and that's why, because of where he was drafted and the points he's getting, and currently right now in standard, he's the 37th receiver, which is horrible considering where you drafted him. So that's why I have him as my bust so far through the first 4 games.
Well, even if you look at PPR, he's number 33. The guys, okay, these are guys that are ahead of Odell Beckham Jr. in full point PPR leagues. Jamison Crowder of Washington,
who will still get points. Quincy
Enunwa, Michael Thomas, the third wide receiver in New Orleans, is averaging more points than Odell Beckham Jr. Sterling Shepard is averaging 1.5 points in full point PPR more than Odell Beckham Jr. right now. Mike Wallace is averaging more. Let's see. Let's see if we can find one more guy who no one kind of expected.
Wallace is the deep threat that matches Flacco's arm. So that's still a good receiver. He still shouldn't be outscoring Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay, here's the good receiver. Terrell Pryor is outscoring Odell Beckham Jr. by 2.5 points a game in full point PPR.
Terrell Pryor is outscoring him at wide receiver, running back, and quarterback.
So that's I would agree with you there with Odell. I got to be honest. I normally avoid Odell Beckham. The last 2 years, I have not drafted him. I have bypassed him to get someone like AJ Green or Julio Jones when Odell's been ranked above them.
Yeah, I got Julio.
This year, I had one league where Odell was the guy that was left, for me, and it was between Odell and I think someone took AJ Green in front of me over Odell, and he was the guy there, and I took him, and I wish I hadn't. At this point, I would rather have Allen Robinson, who's outscoring him again by 2.5 points a game, and Allen Robinson has had a horrible beginning of the season.
Allen Robinson is having horrible first halves of games, and then all of a sudden he catches 2 touchdowns, and everyone thinks he had a good game. So. But moving on to the tight end spot, this one hurts me the most because I expected Coby Fleener to be doing way better than this so far. And apparently, unless Willie Snead is on the bench with a toe injury, Coby Fleener is nowhere to be found on the football field. Once again, not really facing the toughest of defenses. This last week, a lot of people projected him to have a good week because of the strong outside corners from San Diego, leaving the middle open. But still, he only had 3 catches for 19 yards. So far, I don't know if there's any other tight end who's having a worse start of the season through the first 4 weeks based off their projection and what people thought was going to happen. You heard me say earlier in one of the other shows that Drew Brees makes tight ends, not saying that Jimmy Graham is not good, but Ben Watson was nobody and has been nobody without Drew Brees. And so I hope, because he's in a few of my leagues and I drafted for him after week 1 thinking it was going to get better, but so far it hasn't gotten better.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Coby Fleener, they're going into their week 5 bye. So hopefully he and Drew Brees can figure some things out. Here's the main thing with Fleener. You know what Fleener's main problem has been so far? He can't catch the freaking ball. Look at how many balls have hit his hands. In week 1, he had 1 reception on 4 targets. 2 of those hit his hands. In week 2, against the Giants, 2 catches on 8 targets. In week 3, when he had that great game against Atlanta, he still had – I watched him drop 3 balls in his gut, in his hands, still fell to the floor.
Yeah.
Couldn't catch him. Still finished with 7 catches for 109 yards and a TD on 11 targets. But he should have had 10 catches on 11 targets for another 30, 40 yards. And then even this last week, 5 targets, you figure 5 targets, 3 receptions. Okay. Maybe good defense there. But, when a 1-4, a 2-8, and then you watch him drop two or three passes, 7 for 11, he's having some trouble catching the ball right now. So, he's definitely a bust for me right now.
I'm really hoping it's a case of the yips, but looking at his schedule for the next 3 games, it does not get any easier. No. I know Carolina has had their serious problems on defense after just getting absolutely torched by Julio Jones this last week, but he's going to face Carolina, Kansas City, and Seattle in the next 3 games. But listen to the next 7 games: Carolina, Kansas City, Seattle, San Francisco, maybe Denver, Carolina, Los Angeles. It's not going to get better for Coby Fleener, and that's what.
Yeah,
unless he gets rid of the yips, to use a Tin Cup reference, he's going to be the bust of maybe even the bust of all of fantasy football.
Yeah.
So it's, please, for the love, Coby Fleener, please start catching the ball.
All right, and then what do we got left? Quarterbacks.
Moving into quarterbacks, I'll let you go first, and then I'll wrap up with probably the biggest bust, I think, as the quarterback situation. So.
All right, at quarterback, the bust. We already talked about a wide receiver from this team. We got to go with Eli Manning. After 4 games, he's put up terrible numbers. In leagues with 6-point passing touchdowns, he is number 20 in terms of quarterbacks. Everyone figures he's usually going to be right around that 10 to 12 range. So he may come back. He may have an okay season a little bit down the road, But if you started off so far, let's go back to look at which defenses that they have played so far. Let me find them. Wait a second. Where is he? Oh, am I on the wrong one? I forgot. Oh well. Let's go. So it's he is at 18.5 points per game, 308 passing yards for 1.3 TDs and an interception a game. He's not playing great teams. What do we say? He's played the so far they've played New Orleans,
Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the fourth one.
Okay, wait. He had another interception tonight, so he's actually at 4.4 or 1.3 interceptions a game. So actually, okay, Yahoo's finally updated this. So he actually dropped. So he's at 16. He's even worse, 16.26 points per game. He is barely above Blaine Gabbert. He's barely above Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's thrown 9 interceptions in the last 2 weeks
and had negative points.
Yeah. So Eli Manning is struggling right now. And let's see. I mean, again, Minnesota, you kind of expected it against Minnesota. Minnesota is a defense. I mean, there's no streaming defenses if you have Minnesota. You're dropping a bench player to pick up a second defense when Minnesota has their bye. But Green Bay, he's got Green Bay, Baltimore, God, I don't even want to see what it's going to be like for him against LA at LA. Aaron Donald is going to have his way with Eli Manning in that game in Week 7. So, Eli Manning's been a bit of a bust. I don't see it getting too much better anytime soon until maybe after their bye in Week 8. So yeah, Eli Manning is my big fat whopping bust so far at quarterback.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder on the one, but for me, the biggest bust. I know not a lot of people drafted him because of his holdout, but Ryan Interceptric or Fitzpatrick, I don't know. It's bad. It's 9 interceptions in 2 weeks. Granted, that is Kansas City and Seattle, but the Steelers just rolled Kansas City. Not necessarily the fault of the defense. Their offense kept turning the ball over in the red zone on their side of the field. But Ryan Fitzpatrick right now just kind of seems lost. Granted, he had the one game where he just kept throwing it to Revis Island and had a giant party and threw for 374 yards. But he only had 1 touchdown. And so right now with 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, 10, because I forgot the one in the first game. 10 interceptions. It's not looking good for Fitzpatrick. I mean, when people are asking for your backup, who is Geno Smith, that's not good.
No, it's not.
That's not good. And once again, it's not for him. It's not going to get any better. Pittsburgh, who just had a very, very good game against Kansas City. If you can dink and dunk them, you can pick up some yards because they play more of a deep preventative defense.
But again, let's remember Eric Decker's not going to be back for that game, so they're only going to have basically a Nunwan Marshall.
And Bilal Powell, maybe.
Yeah.
And Forte, but Bilal Powell out carried.
We just still don't know if Forte's healthy yet. So
yeah. We'll get to that in a second. But once he's playing Pittsburgh, Arizona, and Baltimore. All really good defenses, or all good defenses. It's not like he's playing Cleveland and Oakland, who have horrible pass defenses.
Well, he does finally get Cleveland in Week 8, so.
Yeah, but do you really want to carry him on your team for the next 3 weeks?
No, he's one of those streaming options. Yeah, let's be honest, Fitzpatrick now is a streamer only. He's a guy that you pick up in Week 8 if you have someone on bye week.
Because
he's playing Cleveland. So
yeah, you stream it because he's playing Cleveland, not because he's Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then now that kind of wraps up our busts. We're going to move on to our breakouts. But Ryan, if you want to cover our affiliate of this next segment.
All right, so our next affiliate that we're gonna throw up here is NFLshop.com. Again, with NFLshop.com is one of the top NFL clothing and memorabilia sites that you're going to find. Right now, they're having their major blowout, or not necessarily a blowout, but they're really pushing the Thursday night football color rush jerseys, and some of these are really stinking sweet. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of the neon green of the Seahawks, but
that's sick.
I know Justin loves it. Honestly, let's be honest, the ugliest one by far is that kind of brownish poop gold of the Jaguars.
Miami was kind of gross on the TV screen.
Well, that's
I was watching the Tennessee Volunteers play in the NFL.
so yeah. Right now we've got a couple ads up for NFLshop.com. You can find out more about color rush jerseys. Also, another thing that you can do through NFLshop.com is you can actually get customized jerseys, the ones with get your own name on the back. Whatever number you want. You can get hats with a number printed on the side, whatever number you want on the side. Specialty T-shirts, jerseys, all sorts of things. You can get those at NFLshop.com. If you want more information, go to skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop. That's all one word, NFL shop. skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop in order to get your next jersey, especially those color rush ones, guys. They, a lot of those are really sick. You want to get one for your team, or you want to get maybe get someone to buy something for you for Christmas or something. Go through skullkingfootball.com to hit up that link. So skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop.
Okay, moving into our breakouts, those who have started off really, really hot, or those we believe will continue to carry that momentum throughout the rest of the season. A lot of these names are really surprising. We wanted to pick the not so obvious, so you're not going to see Julio Jones on here because he did have two kind of bad games, but then kind of took off.
And he's expected to be up top. These are guys that were drafted past. Let's say past round 8 in 10 to 12 team leagues.
Yeah, probably. One of these I got in round 8. And one of the running backs, which I'll cover first, might have been taken in round 6 in the league that I was in. But it was before I would have taken him. So I'm going to start off with the number 2 running back being Melvin Gordon, number 2 being in total fantasy behind DeMarco Murray. But Melvin Gordon has been helped by the injury of
Danny Woodhead.
Of Danny Woodhead, wow. Of Danny Woodhead, who was getting a lot of the catches. But right now, Melvin Gordon is a touchdown machine. I mean, he's 6 touchdowns in 4 games. Granted, he has played some less than stellar defenses. He played Kansas City in kind of that shootout in week 1, 2 touchdowns, 57 yards. Once again, with Woodhead still in the game, 2 touchdowns. Jacksonville, who struggled, with a touchdown. Indianapolis with a touchdown. And then he played New Orleans. He had less yards the last 2 weeks, but he's still finding the end zone. He's going to do that again against Oakland in this next week. He has Denver twice in the next 4 weeks, so there may be a little bit of hurt there. But the rest of the schedule bodes well for Melvin Gordon. So going forward, due to all the other injuries on San Diego's team, look for Melvin Gordon to continue this pace. If there's anybody who's trying to trade him or anything like that, you need to try and get him if you can. It's going to be hard, but you need to try and get him. Maybe attach someone like Odell Beckham Jr. maybe in a standard just because of the name recognition. That's if you and maybe get another piece including Melvin Gordon just because of the name recognition. But go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think I have Melvin Gordon in one of my money leagues. He's been a great guy in terms of touchdowns. Simply because they have to put up so many points in order to have a chance at winning because their defense is god awful. And again, because Woodhead is out, and especially this last 2 weeks now, because Antonio Gates is out, he's been helped out in the short yardage passing. He's getting 3 catches a game for 26 yards. But I mean, the only thing that concerns me a little bit about Melvin Gordon is he's only averaging a little over 3 yards a carry. He's been benefited by the fact that they've been able to get downfield, get near the goal line, and then run it with him. So yeah, he's been quite the guy. He's I want to say in PPR he's number 4. So he's number 4.
He's not getting a lot of catches.
Yeah, he's averaging 20 points a game in PPR. So all right, my running back breakout is one of these guys. I'm so happy that I have him in at least one league. I wish I had him in more. The number 8 running back in PPR right now is Isaiah Crowell. He's getting 17.18 points per game in full point PPR. He is averaging 98.5 yards a game, 0.8 touchdowns per game, only 1.5 catches for about 13 yards. But let's be honest, he is a product of Hugh Jackson, because everyone thought that Isaiah Crowell was pretty talented, but let's be honest, the offensive line never really helped. I think now with Hugh Jackson Hugh Jackson is a running guy. He loves his running backs. You look at especially what Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill were able to do in Cincinnati under him. Isaiah Crowell, I don't think this is a fluke. Isaiah Crowell has had some good games here and there. I think he's here to stay as long as Jackson is his coach, as long as there aren't any major injuries to the offensive line. I see Crowell really, really keeping this up. So I like him. Like I said, I've got him in a couple leagues. I've got him in one league. I've set him on the bench now for the 4th week in a row, and he's the number 8 running back. He is now past my number 1 running back on my team in Mark Ingram. So Isaiah Crowell, number 8, he's my running back breakout so far.
Yeah, one thing with the Browns is they were actually fortunate enough to avoid the injury bug this week. Finally. And so hopefully things begin to settle down in Cleveland, and they can continue to do what they're doing, playing much better football, ironically enough, now offensively with less of their key pieces, which doesn't make sense to me. But moving on to our breakout receivers, this one I am excited to say I picked this at the beginning of the year. Marvin Jones is tearing up defenses right now. Now, let's preface this by he played the Colts, then he played the Titans, then he played Green Bay, then he played Chicago. So 3 of those are not very good defenses. Sam Shields was out against Green Bay, so they didn't have their number 1 corner, which would have guarded Marvin Jones. He had 200 yards and 2 TDs, 40.5 points in that game. But right now, he's averaging 10 targets minimum a game. Or sorry, he got 7 in this last game. So he's averaging 10 targets.
He's averaging right about 9.5, 10.
Yeah, he's getting plenty of looks. Now, the true test will come the next 2 weeks, I think, about his long-term projection, because he's going to play Philadelphia, once again, a sneaky good defense, and then L.A., which is a good defense. And people are beginning to get injured playing L.A. Yeah, I have my own opinions about that one. But he'll then have Washington, Houston, and then Minnesota just before the bye. He's going to have 2 tougher defenses, then 2 easier defenses, then play the number 1 defense just before the bye. I continue to see, once again, if with Tate going out, you'll see Marvin Jones get even more looks. Now, with Tate out, they may shade more coverage over to him, but Marvin Jones is still the number 1 target for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I love the fact that I've got the Jones Stafford connection in a few leagues. I think there's only one where I don't have either one of them, and that is the family league where you drafted both of
Yeah.
them, 3 picks before me on both counts.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving Marvin Jones. I tried trading Allen Robinson and a running back for Marvin Jones, and the guy wouldn't take it. So Jones is I want to say he's the number 4 wide receiver right now in full point PPR leagues. I've got one league where I have, get this is my wide receiver core. AJ Green, who's number 1, and this is an average fantasy points per game. AJ Green is number 1, Marvin Jones who's number 4, Mike Evans who's number 7, and I want to say next I have like Willie Snead who's like number 15.
Yeah, and going into this week, Marvin Jones was 1 and Mike Evans was 2.
Yeah, Marvin Jones has been really tearing it up. I think in a couple leagues I got him actually in the 5th round, so he was a little bit higher of a draft, but still I don't think anyone was quite expecting this. So, all right, so I'm going to go to my wide receiver breakout. Mine, a lot of people said, yeah, well, this guy should break out. He's just, he's got the talent. I wasn't expecting it simply because of who the number 1 wide receiver is on the team. Will Fuller is right now, let me recount this one. He's the number 11 wide receiver in full point PPR leagues. He is averaging 18 points per game. That's what DeAndre Hopkins is only averaging like 12 points a game, 12 or 13. So Will Fuller, but he's doing it on 4.8 catches per game, 81 yards per game, and a half touchdown a game. So he's got 2 touchdowns through 4 games. Plus, he's also, I didn't realize that he's also a return guy because he's averaging 16.8 return yards per game. So I don't know. I think he's probably returning punts. This is going to be my guess. So Fuller has proven to be the real deal. Now let's be honest, he's still suffering from drops. Week 1, if you look at his catches, week 1, 11 targets. He had 107 yards and a TD, but that was only on 5 catches. 11 targets for 5 catches. 7 targets for 4 catches and 104 yards. So he's getting a bunch of deep balls. Week 3, 3 catches on 7 targets. He's catching less than 50% of balls thrown his direction. Then we get week 4. He finally had a decent, what you would call a decent week in terms of catch percentage. 7 for 9 for 81 and a TD. So he is a deep threat. He is a guy that as long as you can still get him cheap, especially in your DFS lineups, if you got a couple of easy matchups coming up, I think he'd be a solid pick in week 6 against Indianapolis. This next week, week 5 against Minnesota, I'd be a little more careful. But yeah, Will Fuller has been an absolute bomb, and I think honestly he's probably here to stay. I don't think he'll necessarily keep up this type of production, but I think they'll try to get DeAndre Hopkins going a little bit more. But I definitely think Will Fuller will be a minimum wide receiver 3, probably a regular wide receiver 2. I think what wide receiver 2 in fantasy is probably right about where he'll finish off. So
yeah, looking at it, the New England game is really the only game that he was really contained, and that was really more that Brock Osweiler couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a football. But Fuller the 5th, as I'm going to call him from here on out, I fully agree, is here to stay. He does have some tough matchups coming up in the next 3 weeks, but it's broken up by the fact he's going to play Indianapolis, who is touch and go on their defense. But as long as Brock Osweiler can get the ball to him, I think he should be fine. I really like that as a breakout. A lot of people grabbed him right off the bat in week 1, so he's probably not going to be available in any league at this point.
He's not available in any way. He's 84% owned in Yahoo.
Yeah, he's 84%. So I would say 90% of that remaining 14 are those leagues where no one pays attention anymore and they got auto-drafted into a league. And so that's where I kind of look at that. He's not going to be available unless you're dominating one of those leagues where no one pays attention. Honorable mention for me, I think it's Steve Smith because of not necessarily the great start total, but the increased production he is getting. Once again, coming off of the double Achilles rupture, he's doing very, very well right now and has some pretty good matchups coming up. So he's kind of an honorable mention for me. But moving on into the quarterback situation, for me, for those of you guys, once again, who are listening to one of the first episodes when we talked about Ryan Matthews having to carry a lot more production because there wasn't really a whole lot of receivers in Philadelphia. And right now, Carson Wentz is proving a lot of people right with why he was drafted so high in the draft and why Philadelphia gave up so much to get him. Carson Wentz right now was a quarterback that I picked up in week 2 just because you never know on a rookie quarterback. He had a great week 1, and I grabbed him right away just because you never know if he was going to tear off like a Cam Newton or a Russell Wilson. Now, he hasn't had a monster game above like 22, 23 points, but for the expectations at the beginning of the year based off of the wide receiver position and how horrible it was looking at Philadelphia, he's got 19 points, 12 points, and 21 points. Looked it up really fast. But right now, he was on a bye this week.
Is that in four points per touchdown or
yes,
6?
That's 4 points per touchdown. And right now, coming off the bye, this is who he's got in the next 2 weeks. He's got Detroit, who struggles on defense, and it will probably be a shootout. And then he's got Washington, who on ESPN is ranked as the 29th defense, even with Josh Norman playing corner. They're the 29th defense. And so look for Carson Wentz to have 2 good weeks, probably a downturn against Minnesota because everyone's getting downturns against Minnesota. And then he's going to play Dallas, New York, Atlanta. He's going to have some better games later on as he continues to develop and continues to put in that chemistry. Once again, didn't play a lot in the preseason, but now is beginning to really go for it now in the regular season.
Yeah, if you go to 6 point touchdowns in 6 point touchdown leagues, he is considered a QB1 in terms of average points per game. He is quarterback number 12. He's got 23, 14, and 25 points in his 3 games so far. 276 yards and 2 TDs, 190 and 1, and 302. So the guy has the arm. He's finding his receivers. Jordan Matthews has had a bit of a boost because of him. Nelson Aguilar is finally starting to get involved when he can stay healthy and stay on the field. So, yeah, I agree with you. Carson Wentz has been a decent player so far. So,
and he has yet to turn the ball over.
Correct. I mean,
he's taking care of the ball.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing that Nick Foles did when he took over. When through like 20, was it like 26 and 4 or something like that, or 20?
You won't get a negative game out of Carson Wentz.
At least not yet. So yeah. All right. So far, my big breakout. This guy was being drafted in a lot of leagues as a backup, or in the back half of 2 quarterback leagues. He was drafted right around quarterback number 20 in a bunch of leagues I know of. 16. He was ranked in like the 16 to 20 range. He is now the number 1 player in fantasy right now. He is the quarterback of the number 1 offense. Matt Ryan is averaging 5 points more than any other quarterback in 6 point per touchdown leagues for quarterbacks. If you could, Justin, real quick, look up the 4 point per touchdown leagues. Just in terms of how many points he is averaging above Aaron Rodgers. He is over 5 points more than what Aaron Rodgers or Ben Roethlisberger's doing. He's averaging almost 33 points per game, 32.91 in 6 point per touchdown leagues. He's averaging 368 yards and almost 3 touchdowns a game. Now you think, well, yeah, he threw for 500 in the last game, but okay, let's go back to the first 3 games: 334, 396, and then he had a down game against New Orleans, only throwing for 240. And the only reason he only threw for 240 is because New Orleans couldn't stop the run, and so Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman were the number 1 and number 2 running backs in fantasy that week, with I want to say 4 touchdowns between the two of them and over 250 rushing yards, or 250 combined yards between the two of them. So he didn't need to throw it. So he is absolutely tearing people up. It'll be interesting. Okay, let's be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what Matt Ryan does the next 2 weeks. Because after lighting up Tampa Bay, Oakland, New Orleans, and Carolina, he now has to go to Denver and face Denver's front 7 and their backfield, and their defensive backfield, who is beastly right now. Then after that, they have to travel to Seattle to face that front 7 and defensive backfield and the Legion of Boom. So I'm really interested to see how well Denver and Seattle can shut down Julio Jones. Seattle has a great defense, not just shutting down the pass, but shutting down the run. I mean, Matt Forte had been tearing it up before this game. I want to say he had like 14 carries for 27 yards in the last game, or 13 for 27. They can shut down the run, so they can possibly shut down Freeman and Coleman. He's a must start in both those games, anyways, simply because of the points and the weapons that he has around him to be able to throw the ball. So Matt Ryan is definitely my breakout so far. And then,
yeah, right now, just to really pull it up for the 4-point touchdown, in a standard 4-point touchdown, he's got 105 points. And so, once again, only 2 turnovers. ESPN hasn't updated their stats, so that might be a little bit off.
That's okay.
I did a little bit of mental math.
All right, so let's we'll go ahead and do the tight end breakout. There's kind of been 2, let's be honest. 2 tight ends really breaking out so far this year. Number one that I have is the number 3 tight end overall right now in fantasy. In full point PPR is Kyle Rudolph, 14.7 points per game. He's averaging almost 5 receptions, 55 yards, and almost a full touchdown. I think 0.8 touchdowns per game. So he is absolutely tearing defenses up right now. Sam Bradford loves throwing to tight ends. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Zach Ertz was doing at the end of last year when he was healthy. And then next is the number 5 is Zach Miller. He's averaging 12.9 points per game in full point PPR, 4.5. Again, he's at 4.5 catches per game for 40 yards and almost a touchdown a game. So the 2 of them have really been breakouts. They were guys that you figured were possible streaming options. Well, now, as long as they both stay healthy, they're tearing teams up. So. All right.
And now going into we need to do it pretty quickly because we're running up on the hour. And
I think we're running over the hour time at this point. So.
But it's a review show. Hopefully you're getting a lot of good information out of this. We're going to get into our pickups for Week 5. For those of you, once again, threatened by the injury bug of some certain quarterbacks, we've got some information for you. But Ryan, give us the sponsor affiliate for this segment.
All right, so for this last section, I am a big advocate for Advocare. I use Advocare products. I love them. I love their Spark. I love the Advocare Slam, which is kind of like the 2-ounce energy drink. The Spark, I love it as an amino acid and energy booster, so I'm not drinking all the extra Wired and Monster and Rockstar and all that kind of stuff. I love Spark, keeps me going through the day. I don't have a major crash. Again, if you want to check out those items, they've got anything from weight loss. They have a thing called the 24-day challenge, which is a kind of a weight loss program to kind of help you out. It's not. Basically what it is, it's some supplements that you can take, and what they do is they somewhat outline a type of diet that you can use over a few days or over a 24-day period, taking supplements along with it. It really, these products work. I love them. So if you want to know more information, again, go to skullkingfootball.com/advocare to learn more about these products. Again, I love Spark. I love Slam. Those are two of my favorite products from them. As a father of two, married man, father of two, who works a job weekends and then is up late nights working on this website to bring all this information to you guys. I need the energy. Advocare is where I get it. So again, you want more information on things to maybe get you going. You want to lose a little weight. Check out Advocare. Go to skullkingfootball.com/advocare to find out more. So.
Okay, so getting into our pickups for Week 5, I'm going to start with the quarterback position. For those of you who stream or have a injury within your quarterbacks, like a Carson Palmer concussion protocol, Cam Newton concussion protocol, my pickup of the week for the quarterback position is going to be Joe Flacco. Once again, going up against one of the worst defenses in the league, who's giving up tons of points. I think Joe Flacco is going to throw for a monstrous game once again, like he did against Oakland. He's going to get the yardage. The touchdowns may get handed off to the running backs, with Terrence West having a really, really good game in the last one. But Joe Flacco should be your pickup of the week if you stream quarterbacks or if you have an injury. Once again, he's owned in less than 50% of leagues. I think it's less than 30. He's not started. I had him, streamed him for a week against Cleveland, did pretty well. But that's my pickup for this week at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I like that. I've got Dennis Pitt in a couple leagues. I've put Joe Flacco depending on the matchup in a couple of DFS lineups. So yeah, I'm with that. Carson Wentz coming off the bye, he's going to be available. I want to say, let's see, he's still available, and he's only owned in 38% of leagues on Yahoo. So if you have issues with your quarterbacks right now, you need someone to pick up, that is definitely one way to go to help out your team. Like I said, he's playing well. He's a quarterback one. So yeah, if he's available, put in the waiver claim for him. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of bit of your fab cash, considering he is coming off a bye, so he's not facing any more of those. So then after that, the only way you'll need another quarterback is due to injury. So yeah.
Moving into the wide receiver role, for me, he had a really, really breakout game this last week against Detroit. Eddie Royal caught 7 of 7 targets, 111 yards, and a touchdown, scored 17 points in your traditional point per reception league. The next couple of weeks he's facing, once again, not the greatest defenses: Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Green Bay, who has struggled this year. And then he faces Minnesota in Week 8 before his bye in Week 9. Once again, he is developing a chemistry with Brian Hoyer. The only game where Eddie Royal has not beat his projected numbers was Week 3 in Dallas, which was Brian Hoyer's first week, which he painted white all over the field with like 14 targets, because that's kind of a developed chemistry they've got from second team reps throughout preseason. Hoyer and White have a good chemistry. Right now, with White potentially having an ankle injury, I think Eddie Royal is poised for a good game against Indianapolis this week.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. He's a solid pickup. Plus, if you have leagues with return yards, that is definitely a good way to go. I want to say, is he available? He's available in a couple of my leagues, so I may be picking him up. Another one to look at is Robert Woods. A lot of people weren't expecting much out of Robert Woods once Sammy Watkins went down, but he's had back-to-back games with 6+ catches. He's got 8 targets, 6 receptions, 51 yards, 10 targets, 7 receptions for 89 yards. With Sammy Watkins still out for another 7 weeks, Robert Woods is the number one guy. Now, was it Marquise Goodwin is a guy that you could he's maybe a streamer guy. If you think you found the right matchup, he's maybe a guy to take a flyer on. But in terms of getting the mass targets, it's going to be Robert Woods. Yahoo's projecting him to be a usable, kind of a wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues, which I can see that. He has a little bit of a tough matchup coming up this next week against LA. It's going to be at LA. As long as Tyrod Taylor can stay mobile, I think the Buffalo Bills have a decent shot at winning that game, and Robert Woods haven't been able to be somewhat productive. He's going to get the targets, so Robert Woods right now is a guy that I'm looking at, other than Eddie Royal. So
yeah, and there's a lot of precedent for this because Sammy Watkins once again had injury issues last year. Robert Woods was the number 1 receiver when Watkins was out last year. So there's already developed chemistry. He can get those catches. He's not necessarily the deep threat. I mean, quarterback is having issues with some of those underneath routes, but and he can definitely throw the deep ball. But I agree with you. Robert Woods should be a pickup. Wide receivers not as damaged when it comes to injuries so far this year, but running backs are, and we'll get into that one next. My running back pickup for this week, once again, an individual coming off of a bye, so people are less likely to think about this name. He had a great game just before the bye. Ryan Matthews is still the lead back, but I believe that Wendell Smallwood will get even more attempts this week than Matthews, because Matthews has struggled to stay healthy in his career. His coach said that Matthews is still the starter as long as he stays healthy, but once again, Ryan Matthews struggles to stay healthy within his system. And so Wendell Smallwood, I believe, will continue to get more and more carries. He doesn't have the hardest schedule going to the rest of the year. He really only has 3 defenses that are really formidable, maybe 4 if you count Cincinnati in Week 13, but he's got Baltimore in Week 15, Seattle in Week 11, Minnesota in Week 7. But I believe because of Philadelphia being a surprise good team and Wendell Smallwood looking to get more and more carries because of the injury proneness of Matthews, I believe Wendell Smallwood's a great pickup this week if you need a spot start.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Ryan Matthews being made of glass. So, so yeah. For me, there's a couple of guys I'm looking at. The main one that I'm looking at for picking up at running back this week is going to be Bilal Powell. He was my sleeper pick going into this season, just because I didn't think that Matt Forte could hold up to the amount of abuse that he was going to get over this season. So as of right now, we don't know anything about Matt Forte being carted off and getting x-rays, other than the fact that he was carted off and is getting x-rays. So yeah. Because we still don't know anything, I would be all over Bilal Powell. And let's see, for me, he's available in 3 leagues. So I mean, I'm going to be jumping all over him where I can. I think that he'll be a solid pickup. Especially PPR league is the main spot to own him. But if he's available in standard leagues, you maybe have Matt Forte pick him up pick up Bilal Powell as kind of a handcuff just in case. But I definitely think that Bilal Powell is someone to own. Terrence West, a lot of people are all over Terrence West after having with 2 games in the last 2 games, 10 carries for 45, and then he absolutely just dominated the rock. 21 carries for 113 yards and a TD against Oakland in Week 4. He's got Washington and the New York Giants coming up in the next 2 weeks. John Harbaugh is still kind of saying that they'll ride the hot hand. But right now, as long as Terrence West isn't fumbling the ball, which he did have some issues with that in Cleveland, as long as he's hanging on to the ball, he is going to be running the rock right now. Even with Kenneth Dixon coming back, Dixon may only be the PPR guy, and he may take over Buck Allen's role. So I like Terrence West. I think as long as he can hold on to the ball, he's a guy that I'd pick up this week. If you have a desperate need to run a running back, go with him. Maybe run him as a flex, but for right now, pick him up just to kind of see what happens. I know that a lot of leagues, Dixon's already gone because a lot of people are excited about how well he played in the preseason. So Terrence West is a guy that I'd be targeting at running back. So.
Yeah, I have already picked up Kenneth Dixon in one of my leagues, and I've already submitted waiver claims for Bilal Powell because there's not a lot of information about Bilal Powell or about the Matt Forte injury yet. I'm hoping that not a lot of information comes out before Wednesday, so that those of you who can hear this podcast can get an advantage on those who may not have some information. I've been about Bilal Powell most of the season because Matt Forte is getting used too much, and I believe you begin to see a little bit of that this last week. But getting into the tight end situation, my tight end pickup of the week, someone I am going after is Cameron Brate. I believe I think he was benefited by the fact that Austin Seferian-Jenkins was cut by the team due to his DUI.
Basically, he's a dummy.
Yeah. As a college fan of the team that he played for, I believe I had really high hopes for him, was really excited when he got drafted by the Buccaneers. Cameron Brate's numbers in the first 2 weeks when Austin Seferian-Jenkins and him were sharing time, Cameron Brate had 3 points and 1.6. When Austin Seferian-Jenkins left because of the suspension and getting cut, maybe not a suspension yet, but he did get cut. Against the Los Angeles, he had 2 touchdowns, 10 targets, 5 receptions. This week against Denver, he had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and goes up against the Carolina team that apparently has the floodgates open on their defensive scoring because they're just giving up points left and right, which is kind of concerning when you look at last year's NFC Championship game. Both teams are 1-3 and horrible right now. Well, I wouldn't say horrible, but they're struggling. But for me, Cameron Brate, look for him to have a pretty good game. He is going to be on a bye in week 6. You may need to have another tight end stashed. But for me, I think he's worth the wait because worth holding on to through that bye because he faces San Francisco, Oakland, Atlanta, Chicago for 4 straight weeks before he faces Kansas City and Seattle in week 11 and 12. Someone you can really stream for the next 4 or 5 weeks as a tight end, and he's only owned in 11% of leagues.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. So you can go ahead and I think we're all set. You can go ahead and close out the show.
Yeah, sorry for taking a little bit long, but once again, catching up through the week 4, doing a little bit of a wrap-up of the busts and breakouts who we think are going to continue on their pace, good and bad. But once again, this is the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Ryan, joined with me I'm Justin, joined with me by Ryan. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Don't forget to check out Vox DFS, voxdfs.com.